Hey, 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 everybody. It's your girl, Jassy Crazy Faith Stokes here. And I just want to invite you and cordially thank you for being here with me today on the Grief Served Its Purpose Challenge. That's right, guys. We are here for another challenge. We are here to bless you with what God has given us. We know that a lot of people are going through a lot of losses through this pandemic, and God gave me this idea to do this challenge to just get some people outside of themselves and being able to deal with some of the grief that has happened, especially now that we just came through, with Texas happening with the blizzard and everything. There's just a lot of loss right now in the land. And so we just want to be able to help people one day at a time. So we are going to go ahead and just start off with thanking you guys for being here, for joining us today. We're going to thank you guys for just being with us right now as we're dealing with all of this in our world right now. And we just want you guys to know, just keep on going. Don't let anything stop you, because that's what we're here for. We're here to be helpers of one another and help each other out in this time and in this season. So I'm going to go ahead without further ado, and I'm going to share my screen with you guys, because I always love to do PowerPoints and to give you what thus saith the Lord my God has given me to give to you. Can we start from the beginning, please? That would be nice. Come in. You can come in. Take a seat. I know, but So today is day one of the Grief Served Its Purpose Challenge. And today we're going to be talking about the 7 stages of grief, guys. I have some people here, in the background that you guys can't see off camera that are watching me as well. So I thank my team who's always here helping me out to make sure my house runs great. So if you hear some noise in the background, that's just them working. So nothing to worry. This is the new life, right? We work from home, we do things. So, life must continue to happen. So today we're going to be learning about the 7 stages of grief, which is we're going to talk about shock and denial. We're going to talk about pain and guilt, anger and bargaining, depression, and acceptance and hope. Right. So we're going to talk about shock and denial. And, I always love to give you guys some great pictures to look at. And in this section, are my feelings normal? We want you to know that in shock and denial, your feelings are normal. It is normal for you to feel numb and paralysis to any situation that happens where you have lost someone that you've loved or cared about. You're going to go through this feeling of like your world kind of stopping, and that you're still trying to figure out if the emotions that you're feeling are what you're supposed to be feeling. Are you supposed to be feeling this way because you don't understand the reasoning why you're feeling this way? And, if it's just not something that you should be doing. And we want to help you to understand is that numbing and paralysis is human. That's part of you being alive. That's part of you having some empathy and sympathy for the situation. There is nothing in life that we are built for and that we're not going to go through, and that we're going to think that everything that happens to us is just happening. You always hear people say, well, everything happens. It happens for a reason. Yeah, well, everything does happen for a reason, but it doesn't mean that those reasons that we don't have to understand why we're feeling those way. There's some things that are in our control, and those things that are out of our control are those reasonings of things that we have to cope, and we have to find mechanisms to be able to work through those feelings of shock and denial. That shock of saying that this person should have had more time. That denial of saying, why did they have to go this time? Why did they have to go that way? They were such a great person. We start configuring our ideas and thoughts in a way that we know that we're going to lose someone, but we want to kind of be in control over how we lose that person. And this is where we come into that phase where we're not able to control that situation. So in Matthew 6:34, It says, take therefore no thought for the morrow, for the morrow shall take thought for the things of itself. Sufficient unto the day is the evil thereof. Meaning that don't worry about what is going to come tomorrow. Tomorrow will take care of itself. Worry about what you're going to do with what you have in the now. Worry about that time that you have to spend with that loved one. Worry about the time and the memories and everything that that you can think that helped you become who you are because of that person's ability to speak into your life, to speak to you when you may be down or in a rut. Begin to carry that emotion with you. Begin to understand that this is the reason why those tools or those words were put into you for such a time as this. No one can avoid the inevitable. The inevitable is that we were born on a certain date and that we will die on a certain date. Now, what happens in between that dash? What happens in between that time is those memories that we are able to build through either doing good memories or via bad memories. And so we know that when we think of the people that we love, we don't want to think about all the bad. And I'm going to tell you something. Because of me losing my mother and my aunt a month apart, every memory will come to you. As a kid, we can be a little bit bratty. We can say sometimes some hurtful things. We can do some things that will make you feel like, oh my gosh, I wish I would have never said that to you. That's a part of life. You have to come to terms with those things that you may have said to that person. It doesn't mean that that person is even holding on to what you said to them. It may have went in one ear and out the other, but the devil will put you in this place of making you think of every wrongdoing that you have done. And that's why that numbing and that paralysis comes, because you start having that kind of redemption period within yourself of thinking, well, I could have treated them better. Maybe I shouldn't have been, so mean to my cousin or brother, whomever you have lost. And so those thoughts will come in, and that's a part of life. But you understand that when we move from that part of numbness, we get into this area of pain and guilt. And pain and guilt can make you come into this place. That's why I love this picture where it says, I'm nothing. It makes you start thinking that you are nothing because of the way you may have treated someone or the words that you may have said. God has blessed us all with emotions. We are all built differently. So because something may affect you differently, or you may have said something, God said that he knew each and every one of us by the very hairs on our head. So he knew the personalities that we were going to have. He knew the character that we were going to have. It doesn't mean that because you've said something in your life that may have been seen by someone as wrong, that, it comes across as that you didn't care. It's like I can say different things to people in my family, and I'm sure you guys can too, where you can maybe say something like, oh my gosh, like my nickname growing up was Fat Jazz, where my family can call me Fat Jazz, but let someone else outside of my family call me that, and they might take it as being offensive because they might think that someone is talking about me. But it was a term of endearment. It was our love talk. It's like when you grow up and you have a baby name, like you might have, Fat or Cutie Pie or just anything. And so those names begin to carry places of love. So if someone outside of my family didn't understand that term of endearment, they might take it as being offensive. So that pain and that guilt and that anxiety, you have to understand that those things cannot stop you. What you have in that person, what you have are those memories. What you have is that love. And what you have are those feelings of it. Sometimes you're going to feel like you are nothing. But when you're feeling like you are nothing, you have to know that in Psalms 23:4, it says, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. So if God's rod and his staff, they comfort you through this time, then all of those areas in your mind that you are telling yourself that you're nothing, that you won't amount to anything, that you don't deserve this, or that person didn't deserve this, you're coming into that place of reasoning that you are not the reason for the loss. You cannot come into this idea that you are the reason for the loss. That loss was going to take place whether you seen it or you did not see it. It was going to happen. That person was going to die at that specific time. You were not in control over their death date. You are only in control over your emotions and how to deal with that death. And when you pain and guilt yourself of saying that you couldn't have helped them more, you could only help them with the capacity that you were able to help them at. You were only responsible for what your ability is. No one, every person would love to be the greatest of doctors and be the greatest of physicians and be the greatest of caregivers, but no one person can do that alone. This is the reason why we have a network of people to assist us, so that we can then take them to their doctor appointments, understand their diagnoses, come to terms with their diagnoses, so that we can better help that person go through their transition. Because when my mother was going through her brain cancer, she never said, "Oh, I'm so sad that I'm dying," or "This is happening." She never claimed it. She always said, "I don't care what the doctors say. I don't claim that cancer." She believed in herself that she was not going to claim it, because it wasn't going to be a part of her to think that this cancer was overtaking her body. She continued to pray for people. She continued to love on people, and she continued to live her life however long it was. They had given her 6 months to live, and she lived 33 months of that 6 months. So to live almost 3 years was a blessing to her, and she enjoyed it, and she never ever complained about it. And she was just always telling me to continue to love on people the same way I've loved on you. And that's the reason why I'm here telling you about these different signs of grief, because once you get through that pain and guilt, you get through that anger, and you begin to get through that bargaining period of your life, where now you're upset. You're feeling like, you know, why did this happen to me? Why did this have to happen at this point in my life? And that's, again, you turning things on yourself. It's not really that you're upset so much that the person passed away. It's the reasoning of why you're now, there's a void of that person not being there. That person taught you so many things, or that person helped you with so many things, and that void is causing you to feel this anger, because now you can't go to that person the way that you needed to. And what I've learned in this experience, in this realm, is that the reason why God has different people come into our lives for these seasons and for these reasons is because, like it says in his word, iron sharpens iron. There's a time when we as a parent, we want to give our kids all of the instructions, all of the details, all of the education, so that they can then be self-sufficient. Even with you learning from even a loved one, if it's your child that got sick, we're learning from their independence. We are learning from them dealing with this pain. We are learning from them dealing with that illness. We are learning from them. And learning this, it's teaching you how to sympathize, how to have more empathy, maybe in a place that you did not have empathy at before. Maybe that in a place that you didn't sympathize with someone around you, because you assumed that because it didn't happen to you or at your door, that it's kind of like off limits. Well, I don't understand it because it's not happening in my life. But just because it's not happening to you personally, it doesn't mean that it can't happen to you. And so that's why I love this picture where it says, explain your anger. Don't express it, and you will immediately open the door to solutions instead of arguments. Try to explain your anger. You don't need to express it. You don't need to come out with so much anger that people can see that you're trying to harm them with your anger. If you learn to explain it, then that's why I said keep talking through the anger long enough to hear yourself. If you learn to explain your emotions and you learn to talk out what you're feeling, then people will be more receptive in exactly what you're feeling. If you just come from a place of anger and you don't express it in a way, and by explaining it, express it by explaining it. Don't express it by physicality. A lot of times people will become physical with those around them. And we've heard that adage, with hurt people. And it's because they haven't learned how to explain it right. They haven't learned how to use their words. They haven't learned how to be able to go through this emotion and open up a door to that solution, because they're too busy wanting to stay in this pity party format of I want to stay in this place because I want to be angry and I want you to be angry. Anger begets anger. So in order for you to get out of this place of anger, you have to be able to speak to somebody nice and respectfully, even if you see that they're angry. Like my mother always told me, when someone begins to yell at you, lower your voice and speak quieter. Because if someone's yelling at you, they're going to have to stop yelling enough to where they can hear what you're saying. So in Psalms 121, 1 and 2, it says, I will lift up my eyes unto the hills, from whence cometh my help. My help cometh from the Lord, which made heaven and earth. And it's speaking of this place of bargaining, is that you need to get help. You need to get help. If it's in the form of a life coach, if it's in the form of a friend, it's in the form of someone that's willing to listen. But you want to make sure that when you're getting that help, that you're getting it from a place that is going to come from a place that's not going to medicate or mitigate what your feelings are, or even sometimes condone what you're doing. Because if we come from a place that we're allowing people to do what they're doing, then we're not affecting their change by allowing them to continue to be in this place of pity. It's not a place of pity. It's not a place of being a victim all the time. It's actually coming out of that victim state and coming into a victorious state. So when you're in that victim state, you can only stay in that victim state for so long before you're even tired of playing the victim. So bargaining with your thoughts is healing. Being able to bargain with yourself and to be able to reach out and get the help that you need and get the people in your life that are willing to help you. There's nothing wrong with using that bargaining measure, but don't bargain to stay in a place that you know is not fruitful for you. In anything that you want, you're not in this life to be less than what you desire to be. You want to be more than you can be. You have a lot of dreams. You have a lot of desires to move forward in an effective state to where you can impact others. Because if you can speak from where you've been, then you're actually helping others to come from where they are right now. And it's good to be impactful in your life rather than being someone that stays in a place or a rut. I'd rather have impact in those that I'm being in the presence of. So then we come into acceptance and hope. I love this picture because it says be, and then it shows the hands, because it's being everything, be noticed, be sensed, be attentful, be following others, being allowing, be able to behold, be feeling, being able to receive, being able to cherish, being able to observe, being able to regard. It's being in this place to embrace those that need a hug. Being into this place that you are understanding that you're noticing that they need a foster of something, that maybe you can be that foster of a sibling or a foster of a parent. I have great spiritual mothers now because they've come to me and they've helped me through this place where it's acceptance and hope. This hopeful place where they've now showed me that what I may have lost physically in my mother, I've gained in so many others. Because some of the people in my life have never had children. So I'm able to be the daughter that they've always wanted. So sometimes God allows us to be in places where we don't even realize that that's the reasoning why we're there, is just to be someone else's hope, someone else's love, someone else's place of feeling like they need a family. So in James 15, 12 and 13, it says, this is my commandment, that ye love one another as I have loved you. Greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. One of the things I remember as a child, my mother used to always say, I will die for my kids. I will die for them. And if you as a parent or as a good friend, some people will, you will lay down your life if it means that they will have a better life or a fruitful life or more understanding life. So would my mother want to be here or my aunt want to be here right now to have to go through this? I don't think so. I think that they would have laid down their life many times so that I can be at this place of where God has grown me to be able to explore the options of life. Because being brought up under my mother, I was such an obedient child that I didn't test her. I didn't go outside of myself because I did not want to feel like I was disrespecting her. So I got a degree in criminal justice, and my dream was to be a police officer. But because my mother did not want me to be a police officer, because she said she didn't want to have her only daughter get killed in the field. I got a degree in criminal justice, but I never became a police officer. But when I sit back now and I think about the career that I could have had, I could have been impactful to my community had I been a great police officer, especially in the climate that we are in right now, where people are having a hard time trusting police. I could have been that role model. I could have been that figure that could have maybe made it up to chief of police and maybe changed some dynamics in my community if I would not have allowed the fear of being unapproved by my mother to stop me from following my dreams. I am saying some people may not agree with the ideas that you have. Some people may not want you to explore your own independence. And out of respect for them, sometimes you stagnate yourself because you want to appease them. But sometimes you're with death, you realize that you can't appease them. Now it's time for you to live your life because you can't rely on their judgments over your ideas, your creativity. And that's what I'm learning now, is that through the loss of my mother, I'm actually stepping out and doing things that I probably would have never done had she have still been living, because I did not want to offend. And is that truly living for you? No. This is why you have to be. You have to encompass all things. You have to understand that in order for you to be, that someone is going to have to agree with their difference of opinion with the way you desire to be. Empowered to secure your new beginnings. Your new beginnings, and start with empowering yourself out of this place of old, out of this place that women don't do that because that's not the field that they go into, that's unladylike. Because sometimes people still have old ways of thinking, and those old ways of thinking can stop you from your growth, from your new beginnings, from your places that you can be. So it's now time to live outside of that grief. It's now time to live outside of that loss. It's now time to move forward in the places that you need to move forward in. And this is why we're talking about this grief, because so much has happened in so many times in our lives where we sometimes don't pursue things because we are living not really our life, but we're living life, unexpectedly for others. So in living these lives, we have to know that this is still our life, and those people are not going to always be around when it's time. And if we don't learn ourselves, then we're going to continue to live for what other people's desires is for our lives. So I see our guest. She has made it into our studio and she's here. So we are going to welcome her on screen, and her name is Miss Stacey Collins. Welcome, Stacey. Welcome. Hold on, I can't hear you, Stacey. I see your mouth moving, but I can't hear you. So I think my computer is on mute. So give me a second. All right. I don't hear you. Yeah, I can't hear you.
Grammy's food is inside the fridge that's in her room.
Okay.
It's in the fridge that's in her room, okay?
Okay.
Oh, my bad.
All right. I think Stacey is having some technical difficulties on her side, guys. I'm going to check to make sure that I can even hear myself, because I want to make sure I'm not having technical difficulties. Let me see. Really quick.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
I just don't know how to go off it on my phone.
You know, sometimes it happens.
I've never done it on my phone, so I'm glad that I can be heard here.
Yes.
Thanks for having me come on and share. And Jassy, I love your heart to want to encourage others to heal and to
Yes.
come out of, you know, grief and pain and anger. So I'm just happy to be here. And I didn't come with an agenda. I just came with Holy Spirit.
Hey, that's the best agenda to have. You know that.
It could be overwhelming to try and piece all the beautiful things that God has been leading and doing through the grief in my own life. So lead me where you would like me to.
Well, I always tell people is that, you know, I just want you to speak about some things that, you know, that you currently, you know, or in the past have gone through, you know, those stages of grief that I just explained. You know, I always like to have a panel, because I know that sometimes people can say, okay, well, she's been through that, but hearing different people's perceptions and different levels of grief and things that they've overcome, I think that, you know, your story in itself is a beautiful one. So if you want to let people know that and give them a little bit about your background and what you do currently, because you're like me, is that we coach, because we know that out of sometimes bad things, beautiful things can blossom. So I want you to speak on that.
Okay, I just want to tell everybody that this is one of the first times that I have spoken out more publicly about these pieces of my story in this way. So bear with me. Let me start with 21 years ago. My 14-year-old brother passed away suddenly, and that rocked my world in a way that I could never have imagined. And everything that was undealt with, all those things in your life that you think, well, I'll deal with it someday, all came to the surface. So it was quite overwhelming. And God brought me through a process of, it took 10 years. That's sad. I understand more now, but 10 years for me to really lay down the anger, to accept that it wasn't my fault, I couldn't have done anything, and to release my little brother. He was 14. His name was Stratton. And at that time, I had 3 little small children, and God blessed me with pregnancy right after my brother died, within a few months. And I got pregnant with my daughter, Charisma. What a name, eh? Like, God even put hope into her name, and there's a whole story behind when we got her name, and she's 20 now. And so that journey exposed to me grief in a different way than when I lost my grandpa when I was 7, when I lost my other grandpa when I was 17. This was so close, and I wasn't ready for it. But God walked me through so much over time. And at that season, I needed time because I'd never been there before. So fast forward, I had 4 children, raised them, homeschooled. We went to Hollywood with my family. My kids are in the entertainment industry, and a lot of journey of grieving through teenage years and pushing through choices that weren't along with what I would want to see for one of my kids, or relationships. And there's a whole grieving process through that as well. If anyone's a mom of young teenagers or young adults, you know what I'm talking about. And I pray, I just release a blessing for you in that journey as well, because there's a grieving in that. And God has shown me that grief isn't just losing a person to death. Grief is death to something. It's loss to something. And God has been really showing me we have to grieve well. So I got to a place in 2018 where I was grieving really not well. And I actually had my body shut down and couldn't walk very far at all, only a few feet for 7 weeks. And it was so intensive. I thought, this is my life. This is what I'm going to be. But God has greater plans. And in May of that year, I actually had my daughter and my husband, and actually both my daughters were there. And she saw spiritually some things that were attacking and coming at me, and prayed, and I got deliverance in May of 2018. So I'm on top of the world. I'm turning 50 in November. I feel freedom. God broke chains with my kids. My kids are coming to Jesus in a whole new way with identity. And God spoke to me so clearly on next steps, and I was ready to go. And he said, this is the year of victory, Stacey. 50, 50's victory. And I felt on that day, November 20th, Thanksgiving Day in the US, every shut down. I felt special, like God had that day for me. And guys, as I look back, if I knew what was to come, I don't know how I would have walked through it. But God was preparing me in strength through all the weaving of my life to the moments that were to come next. And just less than 3 weeks after my 50th birthday, I got the call that my older brother had suddenly died. And he was 52. And that shook me to the core. I can't even describe the shock. And there was an investigation, and it's still unknown. And that is another thing that's hard. With my other brother, there was an investigation and no solving, unresolved situation. And so that was December 2018, December 12th, my brother Stafford. And so we packed up our apartment within a month, came home and had his celebration service. And my husband and I came back to Canada, and my family got spread out. So praise God that I was able to break chains of being so tied to my children, who are now adults, so I could be free to come back to Canada. And I came back kicking and screaming. There's a whole bunch of story in there. And God did some incredible things in the year 2019. He kept saying, for such a time as this. And I lost my brother, and so I was healing and processing through. About 6 months after my brother passed away, I worked with the film Unplanned about abortion, and it really went deep and challenged me on, what do I feel and think about this? And I felt like when my kids were grown, I was healing still. And because I had a lot of heart healing before my brother passed away, that really helped me to go through the stages. But what a journey. And during that time, I was traveling across Canada, and I was speaking and showing the movie and just having a blast. And looking forward to the fall. My daughter was going to YWAM, my baby, and all my kids were doing their own thing. And got to September, beginning of September, and got a prophetic word that this man said, Stacey, God's birthing compassion. God's birthing seeds of compassion in you, deep seeds of compassion. And he said, God's saying to you, I want you to yield everything, Stacey. I want you to lay down everything and trust me and wait. And I was like all excited to go. This is September 4th, and God knew what Stacey needed to prepare for what was yet to come. This is hard. 3 days later, I got that unexpected call again. And it was my younger sister at the age 42. And my mom and dad had been staying with her, and she had just had a baby. She had 4 adult children. Sorry, guys. She had 4 adult children, and she just had a precious little baby, Zachary, who was 3.5 months old at the time. And I went over to the house not knowing that God was orchestrating already in preparation for my husband and I to bring baby Zachary home with us. His daddy was over in Sudan working, and he came back home. And there were complications with, social services needed to step in, and the situation was a little complicated. And so we brought baby Zachary home. So now I'm here with a little baby after I have a 20-year-old baby myself. And I'm like, wow, how do I do this? And it was relearning. And I have to tell you guys, that was September 7th, 2019. It was such a journey. 6 months, I just stopped everything and sat back and just kept asking God, why? Within 9 months, we had 2 funerals, and my mother-in-law died a few weeks after my husband's mom, a few weeks after my sister, and we lost, I believe, 6 more people in the family that are like aunts and uncles, and my son's best friend in the year 2020. And so it was like people just were like dreading when I texted or called, like, what's happened now, so it was a journey of forgiveness. I wanted to blame, anyone who was in relationship with my sister. I wanted to blame her. I remember the day, her name was Sorella, and someone had given me a gift for the little baby Zachary, a little nightlight. And I was on the phone praying with my friend because she was like, "You're so angry, Stacey. You haven't even grieved yet." And I said, "I'm just so angry at her." And I look over, and on this little nightlight boxing, it says, "Twinkle, twinkle, little star. Do you know how loved you are?" And something that God's been showing me about grieving well is to get closer to hear God's heart. And that's not easy. It's a processing of, there's seasons of grieving. And so the first year is so pinnacle that we allow ourselves to cry and grieve and talk. We need to talk. And I would go to people and just say, my sister died, my brother died, and they don't know me, and they're like running away. They're literally running away. But God was showing me how to be in a sanctuary in my home. Even with the busy little guy running around, it wasn't all flowers. It was really hard. It was a really hard year. And when September 2020 came, God said, "Stacey, I want you to lay everything down again." Funny, eh? How God starts to lay things down. And through this journey since September, I've been resting. And in that resting time, I've experienced healing in my grief. And I understand to this degree that verse that says he gives beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning, and the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness. And God, he waits on us to be ready. So for some of us, it could take 10 years, 20 years, 40 years, right? If we get stuck. So I just want to pray a blessing for anyone who's stuck in grieving a divorce, a child gone astray, someone sick right now that's terminally ill that you love so much. Whatever you're grieving, I just want to pray a blessing. I have not arrived, but I feel a joy from God in those ashes. In that mourning, I still mourn. I still grieve, but I don't. Someone said to me that it was really hard for me to hear, but they said, "Stacey, you can grieve, but don't wear the grave clothes." don't wear the grave clothes. So I have to always picture taking the grave clothes off when I feel myself going to that place. And the last few months have been so precious because I've got words downloaded to me, like writing and songs. And I've written a children's book for my baby nephew to remember his mama, my sister. And I'm so excited about that. I never thought I would do that. So God is orchestrating a new path for my life. And God prepared me by telling me, Stacey, I need you to become comfortable in the uncomfortable. So he brought me back to Canada. He set me up to be here, to be able to bring baby Zachary home and to have calm and structure and love and a sanctuary. So there's a lot of story in there, and I'm trying to tell it in, in a nugget. But I really want to encourage you, give yourself the time that you need. But I do believe there's something within us that says, okay, wake up. And that could be today. That could be today for you. And I just pray, like I was talking to a young girl last night, her baby brother didn't make it out of the womb. He was Down syndrome, and it's a sad story. And she's 16, and she felt like she lost her baby as well. And last night, God gave me an idea for her is to help her, that she's supposed to send me a word every day for 30 days that are life-giving words, whether it's describing how she would see her baby brother or whatever that is. And she sent the first word to me, children. And I believe there's healing as we walk along with each other to encourage one little step, just one little step. I was proud of myself for getting out of bed in the morning. I was proud of myself for getting up. I was proud of myself for showing up. That's all I could do for a season. And that's all some of you could do. I celebrate with you. And when it's time for the next step, listen, God, show me. And he came to me and he said, Stacey, I want you to stop asking why. I was crying out, why? Why not me? Why not? That's what we do, right? What could I have fixed this? Could I have changed this? What could I have done? And God says, don't keep asking why. Trust me. And I may never know. But if I don't trust God, I'm left alone in the darkness. And I literally felt that darkness trying to overtake me and to keep me in like underground. And I remember I wrote to someone, I feel like I'm coming out of a dark cave from underground and I'm starting to see the sun is shining. And I pray that you can come to that too if you're walking through the valley of death. And God has shown me a vision of sitting by the pond, a beautiful rippling pond with a brook. And there's green grass and there's a beautiful tree for the shade and the sun is shining. And I'm sitting on this beautiful rock and it's peaceful. And I can hear the birds chirping. And I can see off the mountaintops and I can see some of my friends on the mountaintop. And I'm like, I see you, but I'm not bothered by it because I'm in this beautiful sanctuary place for beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning, and the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness. And I pray that whatever God is doing within me, that has nothing to do with me other than saying yes, that God will do that for you. And if you need to talk or share or be heard, I'm here too. I'm no Jassy is, but I'm here too. That's my heart, is to take what has impacted my life so much, trauma and grief, and to bring it out to help others when they're walking through their own story and their own journey. Thanks for letting me share today.
No, we thank you for wanting to share. I mean, this has just been awesome. I mean, I have been busy, but you have definitely been busy. And I mean, just the new beginnings and that you're able to be aunt/mother to Zachary. And then you're able to write a book as well. I mean, it's just awesome to see the growth that you're still, I mean, growing. And I love the raw emotion, because just because we've lost someone doesn't mean that those emotions don't come swelling back, because it's those memories. It takes us back to yesterday. You know, I don't know how old you were when you lost your 14-year-old brother, you know, but
I was a mom, but it didn't change it.
You were 31 and he was 14. And see, even though you were 15 years older than him, it still, you know, was like, I love how you said how when the 16-year-old girl, when she lost her baby brother, it made it seem like she lost a baby. And it was like the same thing with you, with your brother. I could see that symbolism, how you felt you lost a baby as well. Like it was your child, you know? And so it's just, through that loss of your brother, you were able to help her through the loss of her brother. And it just comes full circle, how God uses us. And we don't ever realize how God is going to use us in any situation until we actually, you know, we go through something and we say, okay, God. And when you said for such a time as this, I was just like sitting here like, oh my gosh, because it's confirming to me, because that's what God told me for such a time as this. And this is the reason why I started doing these challenges. And because I realized that there's just so much in all of us that we don't talk about. We won't talk about, because to some of us, it might be seen, you know, as shameful. Like we're not supposed to feel these emotions. Oh, it's a shame that we're talking about this. And it's like, no, it's not a shame. This is the way God has made us. And that's why I love that scripture that, you know, we will be saved through the words of our testimony, because it's so important for us to speak about this and for others to be freed from those feelings that, oh, I'm not supposed to have these feelings. No, yes, we are. But it's the love from our community that helps us to grow and to know that with those emotions, they're going to it's building blocks. Yeah. It's building blocks of emotions to take you to that next level that sometimes you may have been intimidated or afraid to go into, right?
Yes. Yeah. Like I wouldn't know what to say. Now I'm like, just a second. This is what you need to do. You know, yes. I was thinking the other day, and so I'll encourage people with this too, especially if someone loses their spouse, like, and they have small children, right? People don't realize you can't grieve properly when you're running after children.
Right.
And so I looked back and I thought, why didn't I know I needed that?
Right.
But now I know to help someone else. Hey, do you need me to come, you know, every day for this week or 2 weeks so you can have rest?
Right.
And that one little thing could help someone heal and save years of getting stuck.
Right. Yeah. You were stuck for 10 years. Honestly, Stacey, I was stuck for 8 years, you know, and so to realize that, you know, I mean, well, I can say honestly 7 years because I'm in my 8th year, but I'm coming out, right?
Great. Wow.
But, you know, people don't realize that we get stuck. And sometimes it takes years for us to come out of that stagnant position. We don't know the tools. We don't want to let people in. We are meant to be the strong ones. So we have to put on that face and that facade that it didn't really affect us like that when it really did. But we're being so strong for everyone else that we don't even realize that being strong for everyone else can sometimes be a depletion of who we are. You know, in our true self. So I am just so excited. I mean, I just thank you so much, Stacey, for coming with us today. And you said that have you written the book? Is it already going to be out? Are you going to publish it soon?
I have an illustrator working on it. finally found an illustrator. And, but you know, what's interesting is I want to encourage people as I'm getting unstuck, flow is starting to come. Like, I have 3 other books that aren't children books, and I have the idea of another children's book, and I have a show, an animated show, and I have a reality show, and I got all this in my resting season.
See,
I'm not striving to try. You know, I was doing my own interviews, and and I had to cancel 40 interviews and lay them all down. And so, if you're busy and you're hiding from what's going on, stop. Just stop. Because God will give us, it comes from heaven anyway. It's right. Us, and he needs time. He needs that rest. And so even with the busy baby, I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. And I'm helping people with ideas for them too.
Right.
Like, so that's as I'm getting healed.
Yes. And that's the thing, is that healing doesn't happen overnight. It's every day. And that's the beauty in it, is because every day that you're healing and that you see that you've overcome something that used to bother you or that you thought you wouldn't be able to heal from, you're like, wow, okay, kudos, God.
Amen. Amen.
Yes. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Stacey. And what's the name of the book so that people can look out for it when it comes out?
I believe it's going to be Blowing Kisses to the Wind.
Oh, I love it. So guys, I'm going to keep you guys abreast of what Stacey's going to be doing, just in case she changes the title name to that book, because we want you guys to get out there and we want you guys to purchase that, to support her, because this is what it's all about. You might have someone that just might need that. And, you know, I love children's books myself. It doesn't even matter if I'm buying it, you know, for a child. It can be for me. I'm a big kid at heart. Thank you, Stacey, so much for joining us today. And I will see you on the flip side, woman. Have a great one.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. So guys, yes, today was about the 7 stages of grief. And as you can see, my guest, Stacey, had a lot of things to overcome with the losses that she's had in her life. And now taking on the new role of being an aunt/mother to her nephew, Zachary. I mean, no one ever thinks that they're going to have a 3-month-old baby put into their life and on their lap so late in their life, right? She's like another Sarah experience, that these things can happen and you don't know how God is going to bless you. So when God does bless you, you got to be ready. Be ye also ready for it. And it can just come from you having to take on the role, as Stacey did, because of some loss with her family member. So today's takeaway is that we can overcome, we can move forward, we can still be dealing with things daily, but it doesn't mean that just because you're dealing with something daily that you're not going to achieve the success or the desires of the place that you desire to be. So I want you guys to do the homework today, which is to basically write down your 7 stages of grief. Where are you at currently? Are you in a place where it may not even be a loss of a person? It might be a loss of who you were due to something happening into your life. You know, so it might have been a loss of a job. It might have been a loss of a career that you had desired for yourself. Where are you at in your stages of grief? So your loss could not be, you know, as traumatic as a death of a person, but it could be a death of something that you perceive that you wanted to have going on in your life, and it's not there right now. What can you do now to help yourself out of this stage and move into the next stage, so that way you can come into that acceptance and hope stage of going into your future with designated ideas and plans of success. We want you to be able to be a goal charter for your success. So I thank you guys so much for your time today. I thank you again, Stacey Collins, for being here with us. I thank you guys just for wanting to be here just to learn. And that's what we're doing. We're teaching each other one to another. I love you guys. See you tomorrow.